thinking a little bit, so I feel confident putting something up there. I'm actually working on a manuscript of about a theory of consciousness that I have. So all of it is in the service of that endeavor.
Okay. Yeah, and I really like your blog has like this blend of like spirituality and science. I like your blog. I think you pulled
Yeah,
together.
and it's not your typical scientific view. I realize that, but I still am very interested and I'm compelled by the science of the day in order to augment what I'm actually doing. So it's a blending, and I think that's where the best goal can be when you got to have them both. I don't think it's one or the other. Yeah, I hear somebody's ocean.
Somebody's ocean.
Hear that ocean sound?
Does somebody live by the ocean here? I would hope. It's not me. What about you? What about you, Jim?
Well, let's see. I guess I'm a good bit older than Toby, right? And I don't know about you, John. I guess you're just judging from your picture. I guess you're a little bit older than Toby, also, right? But
yeah, you can't see me now, though, right?
No. But I've done a lot of things in my life and career. My undergraduate degree is in anthropology, and I guess some of the posts I have you can see relate directly to early human evolution, right? But also I've been, after some time in the Peace Corps and a couple other things, I ended up migrating into information technology. So I've been, a software developer probably for about 30 years, going all the way back to the mainframes in COBOL, on through C, C++, and Java development, and various other things. A lot of the things I put on the blog are things that just things I've thought about for a long time, and just finally decided that it's time I throw them out there in writing and see what people thought about them.
Okay.
I'm kind of all over the place, I would guess, as far as some of the topics I deal with. It seems somewhat eclectic because I do deal with, like I said, things like evolution, and I may be dealing some more with some political type stuff going forward also. Anyway, I have a pretty wide range of what I deal with, not just consciousness, but that's a pretty big focus.
Okay, you're kind of like a blend, Jim, of like John and Toby. I think you're like almost like right in between them in some ways, I think. But all right, so I mean, you guys know who I am. I write the blog Utopia or Dystopia. I'm interested in really where science meets up with a lot of like moral and philosophical concerns. So I just explore that on the blog. But yeah, my day job, I work as a teacher. Sometimes I'm a professor. Sometimes I work or most of the time I work for a place called the Distance Learning Project that provides online learning. So I deal with technology, but I'm in no sense a technologist. I guess maybe like to start out, like because we're dealing with. What I did is when I picked these topics, I picked things that were deliberately as broad, right? I really wanted like philosophical conversation around these issues. So maybe like how. What I want to do is I want to establish like how each of you guys understands what consciousness is, just so we have an idea of what the assumptions of the other person are going in. So it's like, because I think we would have a tendency to maybe collide with assumptions, and I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, and if we're not talking about the same thing, that we know, what the other guy thinks. So what do you think, Toby? Like, I know you said you're not, it's peripheral to your studies, but how would you define it? What do you mean by it?
I suppose I would probably define it as the entirety of our awareness, so that I guess people like to talk about qualia as our raw fields. If we have a collection of qualia, then they just kind of coalesce and complex representations of the world, and those representations are our consciousness.
Okay. How would you define it, John?
I think it's an interesting idea that we even can, in some ways, definitively define it. Obviously, there's a great deal of disagreement or lack of agreement about what exactly it is. I was actually reading today from the guy who couldn't be here today, Sidram, or whatever his name is.
Yep.
He suggested a book, The Mind's Eye, Daniel Dennett and Douglas.
I got.
Daughter.
It's
that one.
this book. Yeah.
He suggested, and in that introduction, it says that John John's attempt to define consciousness was a process in which information about multiple individual modalities of sensation and perception is combined into a unified, multidimensional representation of the state of the system and its environment, and integrated with information about memories and the needs of the organism, generating emotional reactions and programs of behavior to adjust the organism to its environment. That's quite a mouthful. And I think that this is precisely the problem that we're all interested in, Rick, is the fact that to say such a thing, it automatically constrains what it could be.
Right.
And all the attempts that we have currently of people trying to define it, all of your empirically minded folk are wanting to base it in some way on the physiology of the brain, and to say that the brain is producing it somehow. And the folks who have a more spiritual or a more non-physical component, something a little more ineffable in mind, really sort of go against the grain to that sort of suggestion. And it has always been that most of the things you're going to read are going to be one way or the other. They're not going to be in the middle somewhere. And that seemed to me the niche that I could fill, because it seemed like nobody was doing it. So now I'm doing it. I'm saying that there's clearly a link between the physiology of the brain, our cognitive function, and a more ineffable component. And again, without being able to, empirically demonstrate it, or to define it in terms that are acceptable to someone who has a more empirical view.
So and this, I certainly take away from your blog, John, is like you believe in like the numinous or whatever they call it. It's just like there's some kind of spiritual realm or like that we tap into with our consciousness. It's somehow there, and we somehow tap into it. Is that
right? It's something that pervades and supports, and is the foundation for existence in the first place. And we perceive it and reach into it and interact with it as temporal beings, but it clearly has components, at least, if not the very foundation of consciousness completely. It's definitely not in the brain. I think that's a given, at least from my point of view, from all the research and studies that I've conducted. I just don't see how anyone could be not fascinated by the idea that we might comprehend it at some point, but no one seems willing to put the two pieces together, the two ineffable and the definitive. It just doesn't seem like anybody wants to do that, and I think it has to contain both. What you're saying.
Yeah, I think later I hope to get, because this leads to your conclusion that machines therefore can't be conscious, or they won't be conscious in the way that human beings are, right?
That's a real thorny issue too, because the very problem that I have with machines being conscious is the same problem I have with you being conscious. I mean, clearly you appear to be conscious to me, and I can interact with you in ways that demonstrate a degree of ability mentally that certainly would suggest you could be conscious, but to know definitively whether or not you physically are conscious or not is totally conjecture on my part. I can't define it. So how would I know if a machine is if I can't even know if you are? I mean, with certainty now. I'm saying.
Yeah. And that's okay. So that's a big question. So let's
That
hold
is
it.
big, yeah.
Let's hold it off, and then Jim, maybe you could give us your view.